it's funny. Not too long ago, I was in the process of learning Mandarin Chinese. I was learning Pinyin, which is the Chinese phonetic alphabet. I learned the initials, I learned the finals, and I was getting quite good. Because I was planning on moving to China, maybe studying at a university over there for, to learn more about the language, the people, the culture. For I am not an American, for I am from a Latin American country, but that's besides the point. The point of the matter is I was contemplating on learning Mandarin, learning more about the Chinese, just learning more about the Asian cultures in general. I had no concept, no idea. I've never been to China, never knew anybody that went to China. So I started doing some YouTube researches. And the more I started researching on YouTube, the more I started realizing how racist Asian people are. Because I've never grew up around Asian people. Like I say, I'm from a Latin American country, but I've never been around Asian people. Never. Yeah, but the weird thing about it is, as I started doing more research, I was like, man, the situation, especially the situation in Guangzhou, the way they're treating the Africans, not letting them on the bus, beating them up. I'm like, man, these people are racist as hell. Man, these Asians are freaking racist, man. I mean, you have a virus that started in China, and now they're blaming the Nigerians, saying they came from Nigeria. How is it possible that you have a virus that originated in your country, and now you want to blame the few little Africans that are living in your country? You want to beat them up, attack them, and say they're the cause of your virus, and saying, oh my gosh. I'm like, the more I started doing research, the more I started realizing how racist Asians are. Because when you watch your movies, the whole Confucius thing, the whole Buddha thing, they seem like such happy, not happy, but probably the most open-minded people you would think about. You wouldn't put them in the same context of like, your typical racist white American and, KKK, redneck, whatever. Rhetoric they try to push, white power, all that stuff. But with the situation in China, it's like America in the 1940s again, where they're being denied, where black people are being denied going into restaurants, riding the bus. They're being quarantined because they're viewed as a disease that started in China. But like I said before, the more I did research on Asian people, the more I realized how incredibly racist they are. They're the most closed-minded, racist people on the planet. But it's funny, if a white person says something bad about them, they get all bent out of shape. They love discriminating against black people. Asians love discriminating against black people. Asians love talking down to black people. I've seen so many YouTube videos of like these Asian owned businesses, salon parlor, discriminating against black women, calling names and so forth. And so being someone that never grew up around Asian people, whose only concept of Asian people were through martial arts movies, I was quite surprised. Being a fan of Bruce Lee, I was quite surprised. I'm like, my God, these people are incredibly racist. They're incredibly closed-minded. And instead of being somebody that used to be open to like learning more, because I even started learning Korean. I started learning Haigo, you know, basic word like Ayang Haseyo, stuff like that. I mean, you know, I started actually learning the Korean language. Actually, because it was either Japanese, Chinese, or Korean. But I actually started learning several words in the Korean language. And I was actually in the process of buying a book of learning the Korean alphabet. And but it's weird. But when you delve deeper and you look into like how Asians react and interact with black people, Asians are incredibly racist. They really are. And it kind of blew my mind. I'm still amazed right now that I didn't know about this. But then again, I never grew up around Asian people, never had Asian friends. And so the only thing I was going by were the movies I was watching. And so the movies didn't tell me anything. When you watch K-pop, you don't realize how incredibly racist these people are. But it's because it's not just that. I watch a lot of documentaries of a lot of black people, like these different, like when they go into these Asian countries, how they're treated, how they like grab their hair and like. I even watched one video of this African girl on a train, and there was like about 7 Asian guys just staring at her. Or you'll watch these videos of these of black people riding the bus, and like nobody wants to sit next to them. And this is prevalent, because I was even contemplating learning Japanese. I was, you know, learning hiragami, learning kanji, and then because it was either Japanese, because I realized how difficult kanji and hiragami was going to be, and so I also looked into Hago, sorry Korean people, Hago. I looked into that. I was going to study that, or then I kind of finally settled on a Mandarin, because I figured, you know, like Chinese, they're like the up and coming people with all the developments in Africa that was going on. But then I realized they're like giving African countries these incredibly disgusting loans that they can't pay back. They're trying to, oh my gosh, the financial situation they're putting these countries in were appalling, because they're offering these loans that they can't pay back, so they will take back those lands that those Africans have. And then it's funny, because the Africans will go there to China and start businesses, and they will be like incredibly racist to them. But then when the Chinese come to Africa, Africans are incredibly kind to them. So it's like a weird contrast. I'm like, man, these freaking Asian people are incredibly freaking racist. And the more you go into it, the more you realize how incredibly mean and disgusting these people are. It's so freaking funny. From a guy who's never been around Asian people, whose only view of Asian people has been through movies. And when you go on YouTube and you look at the experiences of a lot of black people that go to those countries, they're treated like shit. And here I am going to like Korean restaurants, eating Asian food. Oh my gosh. What was I thinking? What was I visiting these restaurants? I'm like, I should be telling people to boycott Asian restaurants, boycott Asian businesses, boycott their salons, because they're incredibly racist. They're the most closed-minded people on the planet. I put them up there with like those KKK people and those white supremacists. They used to call me the N-word when I was just a young lad waiting at the bus stop. Why would a white person drive by and call a young little black kid an N-word? Man, you gotta be a freaking coward, because those motherfuckers would never say that crap in front of my face. But it's funny, I put Asians in that same freaking category, because they're so racist. They are.